Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is part 5 in the fantastic series by the wonderful Ed Smith. As ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag Team Fear. Got a quick note here from the author, from Ed Smith. First, I would like to thank you all who have had such nice things to say about my story, and even the not so nice things. It takes all input to make at least this author a better storyteller. In writing this series, I had intended to make it a 5-part series, but in writing part 5, I discovered I had much more to say about the story, and so I have decided that I will add a part 6, and it will be the conclusion. DMT and I will bring you more stories of life, tales of fear, glimpses of terror, and well, you know. Thank you, DMT, and to all listeners and subscribers. And now, without further ado, Part 5. It was a tiger attack. No, really. Let's get straight into that. Click those ruby red combat boots together and say there's no place like the barracks. The logging road made the truck pitch and roll, buck and jump as it traversed the rough mirage of a goat trail. Floyd kept having to compensate for his injured shoulder and grunted with every move he had to make. But it wasn't nothing but a thing. He was tough, and the pain just made him more ready to bring the heat to any of these goat humpers out there. The truck crawled along the logging trail with Harley, Andy, and Tracy in the truck bed. Andy said to Tracy, "Is it me, or are you getting a creepy feeling again?" And Tracy replied, "Yeah, I didn't want to be the first one to say it, but I have felt that load in my shorts for about the last mile." As the truck continued down the road, Harley said to Tracy and Andy, "Hey, you boys, kick out a couple of flashbangs. Let's see what's out there." The boys popped the safety clips and pulled the pins. Andy chucked his to his left, about 50 feet. And Tracy was getting ready to throw his to the right when a Gugwe jumped from the tree canopy and fell upon Tracy, knocking him out of the truck, and the flashbang landed about 10 feet from him and the creature on the ground. As the beast began to tear at Tracy's plate vest, the grenade kicked off, followed by another one that Andy had thrown to the left. The Gugwe screamed and rolled off of him, and Tracy's right eardrum burst and blood flowed out of the canal. He struggled to get to his feet, dazed and extremely disorientated. He saw the creature writhing on the ground and rubbing its face on the grass while it snorted large amounts of mucus and spit. Harley banged on the roof of the cab of the truck to stop, and Andy jumped out of the truck bed and was in his third step towards Tracy when a 7-inch rock smacked him on the right side of his chest. He had broken ribs before, and he felt them snap. He hit the ground, falling onto his knees and catching himself with his left hand and clutching his right side with the other. As this was happening, the vicious beast that threw the rock busted out of the undergrowth, roaring and hissing with venomous fanfare. It stepped and jumped towards Andy just as Harley fired a 5-round burst, 3 rounds striking the Gugwe's cheek, eye and forehead, and the other 2 rounds blasting out its throat. The creature fell dead just inches away from Andy. Tracy slowly approached the Gugwe, writhing on the ground, as Jameson was exiting the vehicle. Tracy sighted his rifle on the beast's head and wrapped a 3-round burst, killing the creature instantly. Jameson was approaching Tracy when a monster jumped down from the trees and landed about 20 feet from him. The beast lunged at Jameson as Tracy and Harley fired upon the wretched animal. The rounds caught it in the mid-jump, and when it landed on Jameson, it took him to the ground. Jameson landed onto his stomach, and the beast landed on top of him. The body of the Gugwe pinned him in a fashion that was, well, not very alpha for a man like Jameson. The Gugwe landed on Jameson's back and started to spasm with twitches of its abs, groin and legs. Big Mike, Floyd and Tracy all joined Harley and Andy, who had regained his composure, while this would have been the most untactical moment in their brief association with each other. It was, well, unbelievably hilarious to them. As the stress of the fight with the Gugwe abated from the scene, the beast's nerve activity was still active. It looked as if Jameson and the beast were, well, power humping in the moonlight. Big Mike asked, "Hey buddy, should we come back later? I mean, it looks like you and your friend want some privacy. Look, we understand, man. You need this. You have been waiting for it for a long time. Just relax, bro. Just let it happen," he said with tears in his eyes while he was leaning over him. Jameson looked up at him from underneath the still jerking body of the Gugwe with stunned surprise and disgust. The guys laughed through their pain of their injuries as the release of stress of the situation faded. Floyd then chimed in. "Now, brother, you wasn't looking at me in that way when we were deployed to Iraq, were you?" Hey, if you were, I understand. Why didn't you say something, man? We could have worked it out. I'm hurt, you know? I have feelings too, bro," Floyd said, while not being able to keep a straight face. And Jameson was pissed, angry, and humiliated. He almost pushed the body with the weight of the beast on his back in push-up style, but was unable to hold the position. Jameson collapsed with the beast still on top of him, twitching, and Andy said, "Round 2. How much longer are you and your boyfriend gonna be? We gotta go back home soon. I promised your mama I'd have you back for midnight." He said with adolescent glee. And Jameson said angrily, "Look, you sludge fuckers, get this piece of fuck off of me." The guys managed to get the Gugwe off of him and get Jameson to his feet. He had blood of the beast all over his back and most of his lower body. Big Mike piped up, "Hey man, did your little buddy there let you get your blood wings?" Big Mike roared and howled with laughter, and the guys were just, well, to put not too fine a point on it, relaxed. Jameson picked up his rifle and gear and started walking back to the truck with the laughter of the jeers of his brothers in his ears, and he began laughing himself. "Ah, damn it," he said. "Can't a girl get any privacy anymore?" As he threw his gear into the truck, Harley piped in, "Saddle it, boys, let's boogie." The boys checked each other's wounds and injuries before they remounted the truck, all the while looking at the woods and undergrowth for any sign of the beast's presence. The area seemed normal, no stench, no noise other than forest sounds, and Harley said quietly, "Pull those magazines, kick those, full ones in. All right, let's hit it." The team's truck started crawling down the steepest part of the trail when they began to hear howls and growls coming from the left and the right, and a rock about the size of a small dormitory refrigerator rolled by the right side of the truck and past it, smashing into an 18-inch tree trunk, and busted the trunk of the tree, knocking it down. The fallen tree was now partially obstructing the trail. "Oh, fuck. We're playing this game again. Big Mike, get the demo pack," Jameson said. Big Mike grabbed the large pack. "No, the small one. You want to kill us?" Big Mike responded. "I thought you wanted to do some rat killing," Harley piped in. "Cut the crap. These things are up to something." They were about halfway down the mountain when Big Mike dropped the small satchel charge behind the truck with a 2-minute fuse. "If those things are following us, we're going to make it interesting when they get here," Big Mike said. The truck continued down the trail, and a resounding boom from the satchel charge echoed across the hills and valleys. It reverberated heavily in the wooded sides of the peak, and about that time the sound of the boom subsided. The boys in the truck heard loud steps like running coming down the hill. Big Mike switched on his through-night flashlight that illuminated the area behind the truck and the 200 feet behind the truck, and to the boys' surprise, there was 2 Gugwe running at full stride down the trail at them. As the boys raised their weapons to fire on the beasts, the Gugwe veered off the trail left and right, and when Jameson saw the 6 large boulders rolling towards the rear end of the truck, Harley banged on the top of the truck and yelled at Floyd, "Faster, Lloyd! Move this thing!" Floyd revved the engine, and the truck moved at a lively pace, but the roughness of the trail caused the truck to pitch and roll like magnitude 10 earthquakes, throwing the men and equipment all around the cab and truck bed. As the stones struck the truck's back bumper and rear axle, this caused the truck to lunge forward in a violent manner, throwing Andy in the cab into the windshield, knocking him unconscious. The truck's rear axle separated from the frame and caused the truck to drop onto the boulders and the ground, causing the truck to pop up in front and made it impossible to steer. Sliding sideways in the middle of the narrow trail as the truck came to an abrupt stop, the right side kicked up and almost flipped the truck onto its left side, as Harley and Big Mike were thrown out of the truck bed, where they were slammed into the dirt and rocks of the roadway. Jameson somehow was able to stay in the truck's bed, but was struck in the forehead by equipment being tossed around like an ice cube in a blender, where he sustained a cut above his right eye that began bleeding profusely. Floyd and Tracy were bruised severely by equipment and gear sloshing around in the cab, and Floyd twisted his right arm that was dislocated and was screaming in undiluted pain. Tracy seemed to fare a little better. With mostly scrapes and bruises, Tracy crawled out of the back seat over to Floyd in the driver's seat. "Brother, you okay?" he said while helping Floyd reposition his arm. Harley and Big Mike looked like they had been in a mixed martial arts fight, and neither man tagged out of. The team was in piss-poor shape, but Harley knew that they needed to get moving. With the promptitude of a fireman at a 5 o'clock alarm fire, Harley yelled with a sense of urgency that the guys hadn't heard from him. "Grab what you can, we are leaving," Harley, calming himself, said. "Jameson, do you have a location on those things following us?" "No, I lost them," Jameson said. "What about Andy?" Tracy asked. And Jameson replied, "I'll carry him." And Floyd added, "That's a no-go, brother. His ribs are broken and you throw him up on your shoulder and one of those ribs might puncture his lung." Big Mike then stated, "This is easy. Get that canvas tarp out the bed of the truck, fold it into a third, and then we wrap him like a papoose, like the Indians. And then we'll tie that rope around it and we'll sled him out of here." "That's a hell of a kick-ass idea. You just earned you a Big Chief Merit badge," said Jameson. The boys went back to work at patching each other's wounds and gathering supplies and gear they thought they could carry. Every once in a while, when the beast got too close, they would kick out a flashbang and let about 10 rounds fly, and the creatures retreated with a tantrum and absolute ebullition of fury. "All right, brothers, this is what I did not want for any of us to have to face, walking out of here with those things on our trail. Now remember, if you get a shot, take it. We have to keep them off of us. And above all, we cannot let them separate us. If that happens, we're dead. Let's ground pound, boys," Harley said with a worry and a bit of fear. The team began walking with Andy in tow. The creatures kept an unusually comfortable distance. Several in the team made mention of this fact, and Big Mike even joked that "we got 'em demoralized, bubbers." Nervous chuckles were the anti-stress meds of the day. They travelled for about 1.5 miles and were walking on a fairly flat section of the trail when a burned-out cabin came into view. "Hey, Harley, you see what I'm seeing?" Jameson pointed and said. "Yeah, let's see if there's anything that might help us out," Harley said with a little hope. The cabin had apparently burned within the last 72 hours or so, and several hotspots were still smoking, and towards the back of the collapsed structure, Tracy found a kill that the creatures had made. It looked like a man in his early 20s had been ripped apart and fed upon. And Floyd and Big Mike walked over to the barn, in which the doors were still shut. Big Mike opened up one side of the doors, and Floyd advanced inside, weapon at the ready, backed up by Jameson and Big Mike. Big Mike walked out and said, "Hey boss, brother, you ain't gonna believe this." Harley then picked up the rope and pulled Andy over to the barn with him. Harley walked past Big Mike, and there it was, a 1972 Greyhound Cinecruiser bus. "Holy crap," Harley thought to himself. It was a 40-foot-long, all-metal body, split-level wonder. "Tell me those doors are unlocked," Harley said. Jameson walked over and pushed the door. At the folding seam, and the doors opened. Harley whistled to the other guys to join the team in the barn. The bus's interior was pretty much original, and some of the seats were taken out on the upper level. It was hot and stuffy, and it smelled like 1,000 mothballs, but it was a lot better than having nothing around them. To Jameson and Big Mike, it was like having an armoured transport dropped in their laps. The boys were sucking down on their camelbacks, trying to get rehydrated, and Floyd set about attempting to find the keys when Harley came up from behind and said, "Floyd, baby, tell me you get this thing started." And Floyd was a mechanic at Triple J's Auto Shack in town, and he worked on everything under the sun, and was, well, an amazing mechanic. Floyd took a breath and spoke. "If I can find the keys, then I can check the thing out completely. That key is what we need to find." They both began to look everywhere up front. They finished searching and came up with no key. "I bet the key was in the cabin," Floyd said. "Bubba, if you can't get this thing moving, we will last a little bit longer, but they will eventually get in here, and we know what happens then," Harley stated with reservation. "Okay, I might be able to hotwire this thing, but if I get it wrong and I shot this thing out, it will never move. I'll see what I can do, boss, but you need to have a plan if this doesn't work." Floyd spoke to Harley with caution. "Floyd, I'm all out of rainbows that I can put out of my ass. Just do the best you can. Just do the best you can, brother," Harley said in a low, resolute voice. When Floyd went to work, Harley told the rest of the team to organize our equipment and what supplies we have. And Jameson wanted to open a window, but Harley said that wouldn't be a good idea, and they would have us sent out and they would come running. "Just breathe shallow, boys. It's the best thing we can do at this point." Tracy was sitting up front when he saw it. An 8-foot-tall Gugwe was walking towards the barn. Hey, boys, see it? Right there." Tracy alerted everyone. Harley ordered everyone onto the floor and told Floyd to stop working on the ignition and lock the door bar in place, and then to get to the upper level. As the beast approached the open door, he raised his snout and smelled the air deeply, and several of the guys whispered, "That SOB is gonna smell us. Let's just shoot the damn thing now." Harley signaled negative, and that the noise would bring more of them in. And while the beast moved around the bus, its nostrils burned with the smell of mothballs, and it smelled nothing else. Its claws screeched on the metal body of the bus as it slid them from front to back of the bus, as it circled the bus twice and then left the barn, where it disappeared into the night. The team breathed a collective sigh of relief. "Whew, fuck," Tracy exclaimed as Floyd began working again on the ignition. After about 20 minutes, Floyd called Harley over and briefed him on the situation. "Boss, I can get the ignition to respond. However, we are assuming that there is enough charge in the batteries that will allow a 2-minute warm-up of the glow plugs, of which there are 8, and then we're taking a chance that the fuel system has no air pockets in the lines. And then we can turn the engine over and see if it will start, assuming if it's in working order. Boss, brother, without physically looking at this engine, I just don't know. Just the noise from the startup could bring those things in here. And one other thing, once the engine is started, it's going to have to run and warm up for at least 10 minutes, or our trip is over before we get started," Floyd stated with confidence in his abilities. "That's a chance we'll have to take," Harley lamented. "All right, start the ignition sequence," Harley said to Floyd. He messed with a tangle of wires, and the glow plug warm and amber lights came on for all 8 plugs. He said, 2 minutes. The boys looked at each other as the sweat leaked from every pore. After about 90 seconds, they heard a buzzing whirling of something from deep down in the undercarriage of the mechanical beast's engine. They looked at Floyd with nervous anticipation. "It's the fuel pumps pressurizing the lines and injectors. It's a good thing." The team breathed another sigh of relief. 20 seconds later, the glow plug's lights began to turn green, one by one. "Fuck yeah," Floyd exclaimed. 10 seconds later, all lights were green and the fuel pumps kicked out. "All right, boys, hold on to your butts." Floyd pushed the engine start button and the massive engine growled to life. While running rough, it shook the bus. Oil pressure and water pressure gauges began to rise to normal levels. The air compressor kicked in and began to pressurize the brake lines, and Floyd began to check other gauges and indicator lights. He was surprised at the engine's performance. He figured that it had been recently maintained and mechanically checked. "Whew, brothers, we got lucky," Floyd said with exuberance. And Jameson said, "You earned your 2 cans of beer this month, Bubba." Transmission and transfer case temps began showing normal readings, and air braking system was in green also, and the all-important fuel gauge was reading 3/4 of a tank. "Hey man, does this thing have any vents or fans?" asked Tracy. "My brother, I can do you one better," Floyd said as he flipped the 2 air conditioners to the on position and blower fans to maximum. "Hey, you the man, baby," said Big Mike. "You can stop by my bunk tonight, so I can show you my appreciation," Floyd said while laughing. So long as you call me sweet thing, at the appropriate moment. Give me a little ass slap as you finish off. You know, I have feelings too, Big Daddy," Big Mike said in his phony, passionate voice, which is familiar to everyone at this point. The team erupted in laughter. "Boss, we can roll on out now," Floyd said. Take us home, brother," Harley said with relief, and with that, Floyd pushed the clutch and shifted and pressed the accelerator. The Goliath of a vehicle moved out of the barn and onto the gravel road in the direction of the asphalt road back down to town and home. The bus, with all headlights glowing and travelling about 25 to 30 miles per hour down the gravel road, was just about a mile and a half from the burned-out cabin when two Gugwe began running beside the bus, trying to jump onto the bus's side. Several windows were broken out, and one of the Gugwe stuck its arm through the broken window and began to randomly sweep the interior of the bus. And with its arm and hands, and two of its claws hung onto the back of Harley's plate carrier vest, and the monster began to pull Harley towards the broken window. Harley was screaming, "Get it off me! Get this fucking thing off me! Shoot it! Shoot it! Shoot this damn thing!" And Tracy shot the beast in the head and dropped it. The other Gugwe fell back and jumped up onto the roof of the bus, and Floyd increased the speed to about 50 miles per hour, as the bus seemed to have a good grip on the road, even with the gravel under its wheels. The beast on the roof began to pound its fists onto the roof at the rear of the bus, where it began to move forward, and the dents in the ceiling of the bus were now getting deeper and closer to the front with every blow. Jameson said, "The goddamn thing is going to get in through the skylight up front." And Jameson was about to shoot through the ceiling when Floyd yelled, "Hold on to something! Hold on, brothers!" Floyd downshifted and jammed the air brakes, and the speed of the bus went from 50 to 20 miles per hour very rapidly. And the beast could be heard tumbling and rolling down the roof. Floyd, Harley and Jameson saw the beast as it rolled past the rooftop skylight, and then it flew off the front of the bus. Floyd saw the creature hit the gravel and rolled violently. The beast looked up as Floyd stomped on the accelerator, and the front bumper hit the Gugwe in the forehead, and then the tyres on the left side of the bus rolled over the Gugwe's body and caused the bus to bounce and rock from side to side. The team screamed and shouted for Floyd, and someone yelled, "I want to have your baby, sweetheart." And Harley went up and asked Tracy how Andy is doing. Tracy responded, "Man, boss, I don't know. I have tried everything to revive him, but he's out. We need to get him to a medic, man," Harley said. "Well, that's the first thing we're going to do." The bus sped down the gravel road, throwing up dust in the dark of the early morning. Sometimes, even to live is an act of courage. Seneca 4 BC. Connor took a breath and tried to calm himself after the revelation of finding out that he had been violated. He took a deep breath and wondered what he would think of himself when he looked in the mirror next time. Did he hate it? Did he like it? He didn't know. The door opened and two guards and a woman in a lab coat walked in, and the guard said, "Come on, son, it's time." The guard in charge said, "Time for what?" Connor said, standing up from the floor. "Look, we can do this with no mess, or we can make a mess of you," one of the guards said. Nope, I don't think so, butt munch," Connor shouted in defiance, and he began to resist and fight the guards. The guards quickly subdued him, and the woman in the lab coat walked up. "Hey, get that away from me! Get it away, you bitch! No, stop it! No!" Connor shouted as she put a jet injector pistol to his neck and fired it twice. Within seconds, Connor went limp. He wasn't unconscious, but he wasn't aware of the guards, the room, the lights, but he could not make his legs and arms work with any effectiveness. The guards had Connor by each arm, holding him up, and was dragging him down the hallway with tops of his feet sliding on the floor. They followed the lab coat technician to the elevator, and there were 4 buttons. She waved her access card in front of the sensor and pushed the bottom button that was labelled level G. Connor's head was swimming. The elevator doors opened, and they continued down the hallway to the room labelled G-601. This room didn't look familiar to him. but the clinical smell burned his nose. The guards pulled him to a table located in the middle of the room. It was a stainless steel table with a frame made to resemble a human body, with bracket clamps at the wrists, elbows, shoulder, neck, hips, knee, ankles, and a strange bracket located in the groin of the table. The table had a pivot point at the centre, along the side of the table that allowed it to be brought to a vertical position, and quite possibly even a 480 degrees. Connor was terrified, and he wanted to fight, but he couldn't fight. The drugs held a hold on his muscles. The guards placed him on the table face up, and the technicians began to secure him to the table. After all points were secure, the lead technician told the guards they could leave, and they will handle it from here. The guards turned and left. A man then entered the room, dressed in black, digital, pattern combat utilities and black boots. He stood far back from Connor, so he couldn't see him all that well. One of the technicians stepped up at the foot of the table, flipped a switch, and a part of the table that held his legs started pulling his legs about 6 feet apart. "What in the hell are you doing, fucker?" Connor screamed as a gloved hand grasped his most prized possession. The tech began to insert the catheter into his penis, and he winced at the pain and discomfort. His legs were brought back together while the tech secured the catheter's hose tube to the frame and to the bag located behind the right knee under the table. Connor's breathing was heavy, and while trying to remain brave and stoic in the face of the truth of this situation, his fear hit him like a freight train. The table spun, taking him head over heels, and with a loud click, and he was now facing down. The table again spread his legs again, and he felt the touch of a gloved hand, in that spot that no 18-year-old country boy should ever have to experience. The cold sensation of the lubricating fluid shocked him to the point of screaming, "No, no, no, please, no, no, not that, no!" As the 5.25-inch diameter bulb of irrigation and suction tube was inserted into his anal canal at full length. It was seated at 11 inches and with the seal plug in its proper position. Connor's aspirations of untold disgust and revulsion, which were apparent on his face and in his lungs, manifesting in a string of saliva dripping from his open mouth and falling to the long floor drain below him. The table was spun again to the opposite direction, locking in place with a loud metallic click, and he was now facing upwards. The technicians began placing monitor electrodes across his chest and mid-thorax, as well as his wrists and ankles. Intravenous ports were placed in both arms, and one on the top of his right hand and one on the top of his left foot. 2 banks of 8 intravenous infusion pumps were rolled into place, one on each side of the table. "Please, please don't hurt me. Don't kill me, please," he said in a low, beaten voice of an 18-year-old that never knew of the existence of such terror. Then the technician started to place adhesive electrode pads on his lower abdomen and on the inside of his thighs. While this was happening, several other technicians began to lock in place the head-restraining metal bracket that gripped his skull from behind, and with nylon webbed straps with hook and loop bands to prevent the head from moving in either axis of direction. "Please, man, please let me go. I don't want to die," Connor said, crying and begging to the tech that was securing his head. The tech said, "Well, buddy, that's not up to me. Hopefully this reality conversation therapy will take hold. Otherwise, you'll be repurposed. Enjoy." As the tech patted him on the shoulder and completed the task and walked away, another tech began to install the ocular retractors to hold back the upper and lower eyelids. Misting nozzles were placed so that the eyes may be moisturized during the process and to allow other pharmaceuticals to be administered. The remaining preparations were completed and the table was spun to an upright vertical position. Connor was breathing heavily and his abdomen was rising and falling with fear, bordering on panic. He was able to see a man with his widely stretched eyes. The man, who was intently watching from a distance, now began to walk towards him. "Okay, Connor, what did you see out there, my boy?" the man said with restraint in his voice. I saw monsters. Where's Jerry? Where is he?" Connor said, struggling. "You'll see Jerry again, but "Now that depends on you, young man," the man said with resolve or purpose. "Connor, you are mistaken. You saw tigers, Connor. Tigers. Say it with me. Tigers," the man said.
"No. Fuck you. I saw monsters. Those fucks killed my friends. That's what I saw. Who the hell are you assholes?"
Connor yelled and contorted his body.
"Let me the fuck go, man."
He began to struggle against the restraints while crying. The man turned and walked towards the door, and the lead technician asked, "How do you wish to proceed, Mr. Allen?" The man stopped and turned to the lead tech and uttered, "Put him on the same level as Jerry. Make him understand," as he turned and walked out of the door. "Okay, Connor, here we go," the lead tech said with gleeful delight and hopeful elation. The cavalry is coming. The cavalry is coming. The old Greyhound bus crested a rise in the asphalt north of town, about 2 miles before the city limits, and Harley said, "Well, let's stop here, Floyd. I need to call to the safe site and let them know we're coming in." He tried several times to raise the command post, and nothing, just static. He thought, well, maybe I need to get a little higher. Harley got Big Mike to give him a lift up onto the roof of the bus, and Jameson and Big Mike pulled security. He still couldn't get through to them. Now that was darn strange, he thought to himself. But in case something bad had happened, they were going to play it safe. He took out his binoculars, and from this vantage point of the town, around the gym looked like a war zone. In the early morning light, cars and buildings burned, and the burning charred bodies of Gugwe from what he could see of the gym. It was intact, and then his stomach turned. He observed 3 Gugwe moving on top of the roof. "Oh, fuck me running," he said to himself. He jumped down with the help of Big Mike and informed the team, and stated that he believed they are all in a fallback. However, since the roof is lost, they will not have any fire support upon their return, as was planned, and they will be on their own for the entire trip. There is a possibility that if they returned, they could put the survivors in more danger, as they would have to open the safe site to either let them in or to assist the team's return. The boys made the decision to attempt to return to the safe site, and Harley said, "Okay, let's do this." The bus began to roll, and they hadn't travelled more than a quarter of a mile when Floyd called back to Jameson. "I think we got company," as he caught sight of a large convoy of military vehicles speeding towards them in his side mirror. 14 of the Humvees, and the JLTVs, short for Joint Light Tactical Vehicles, overtook them and passed them. And then a Humvee passed them and pulled over in front of them, and a 50 caliber MA Deuce or M2 swung to its rear and locked onto the bus, and then ordered Floyd, with the use of hand signals, to slow down and stop. Floyd was pissed. "God damn, fucker. Point that thing at me. Fuck!" The rest of the boys were upset and cussing like son of a bitches, and Harley said, "Hey, calm down. They don't know who we are. Just take a breath." As the bus came to a stop, about 15 combat troops dressed in operational camouflage pattern, or OCP camo, and full combat gear came stomping up each side of the bus, and the boys were unnerved. Harley said, "Boys, take a chill. Do as they say. Again, they don't know anything about us." The troops started ordering them to drop their weapons and come out of the bus, and Harley and Big Mike exited, followed by the rest of the team, minus Andy. "I need to talk to your platoon leader, or your platoon sergeant. I'm Staff Sergeant Harley Jones," Harley said with a command voice. A soldier approached him. "And I'm Master Sergeant Kelly. What in the hell are you guys doing out here?" Harley then explained the long and short of their story. "As per standard operating procedure, we're going to have to take you into custody until we clear your story. You do understand," said Master Sergeant Kelly in a matter-of-fact tone. Harley reluctantly set down his weapons, placed them on the ground, and stepped to the side of the bus and placed his hands on the side of the bus. "Brothers, you know this is what has to happen. Let's not complicate it," Harley said as he thought to himself, "Please don't muck this up, boys." The other team members reluctantly did the same, and a soldier walked up to Harley, instructed him to remove his plate vest and battle belt. He complied and then the soldier asked him to remove all the contents from his pockets, and the soldier placed them in a drawstring bag that had a tag on it. Harley and the boys, along with the soldiers in the area, heard a series of loud booms in the distance as the third push ring detonated. Harley smiled and thought, "Damn, Stan is still partying." He lightly laughed to himself. The soldier then told Harley to remove his utility shirt, pants and boots. He thought this was odd, but he knew that in the past he had done the same to other detainees. A little different when it's you in that position, he thought. Harley did as he was asked when Jameson said, "Now goddammit, I'm not stripping butt-ass naked for you or anyone. I'm a fucking veteran and motherfucking American. I'm not doing it." The soldier that was processing him replied, "Sir, if you don't comply, we will make you comply. Do you understand?" You know I read that book too, but this is America, and not some piss-ass catbox," Jameson barked. "Sergeant Boyd, you will comply with their orders," Harley barked back. Jameson looked at Harley with frustrated anger and supreme irritation. Jameson grabbed the waistband of his briefs and jerked them down and said, "There, stand in awe," throwing his hands in the air as he complied with their order. A few minutes later, all five were standing buck naked with their hands on their heads, except Floyd, with his dislocated shoulder and broken collarbone that secured his hands to his waist shackles, and the others were zip-cuffed and put into the JLTVs. While this was happening, a stretcher was used to evacuate Andy to a Tulsa hospital by air ambulance. When they arrived at a mobile compound center located in the parking lot of Will Burton High School, just south of the football field, and the open field to the east of the parking lot now served as a heliport, they were ushered into the decontamination tent, and when they were processed to the rigorous standards of the situation, not 1 inch was spared from the scrub brush. They were given medical care, and Floyd's shoulder was reset and his broken collarbone was determined to be a small fracture. The arm was secured by a bracing sling and given some oral pain relievers. The team was made to dress in orange jumpsuits and flip-flops and assigned to one of the holding tents inside the hastily constructed chain-link and concertina wire fence. A meal ready to eat and non-alcoholic beverage was provided to them. Master Sergeant Kelly informed them that in due time they will be debriefed, and then command will determine their disposition. Basically, hurry up and wait. The creed of the United States military, Harley thought to himself. A cacophony of dread, panic, shock and trepidation, all slung on the tapestry of a young life. The lead tech and tech that catheterized his dick were talking in front of him and betting on how many sessions that it would take to break him. And then they were laughing and joking about how Jerry cried like a little bitch begging for the dick. "Are you a little bitch, Connor?" asked the lead tech. "Fuck off, you pieces of shit. Get on with it, you fuckers," Connor barked with anger and desire to kill if he could ever get loose. "Ha ha 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 ha, you have no idea of what's ahead of you, boy," said the tech that was betting with his partner. The techs moved to their positions at the control panels. "Okay, traitor boy, you're about to feel real pretty. Ha 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 ha." The lead tech teased Connor. Connor began to feel a very cold sensation in his lower bowel, as it was so cold that his intestines cramped, and with the pressure of the intruding fluid, the pain and extreme discomfort racked the whole of his abdomen. His moans turned to heavy breaths of anguish, and then the electrodes began firing in a sequence that caused his bowel to contract and push against the resistance of the fluid inside him. The pain was excruciating. "Oh, Jesus, please. Oh, fuck. Oh, damn you fucks. Oh." The sweat was now rolling down his chest, and this process went on for 45 minutes or more. And when the pain was at a crescendo of Connor's reality, he felt the fluid being sucked from his bowel and the shocks of the electrodes ceased. His relief was short-lived, though, when the intravenous infusion pumps began to confluence of the pharmaceuticals into the veins of his arms, and the contractions of spasms that racked and rocked his body pushed him to madness. He was screaming before he realized why he was screaming. About an hour or so after this, it ceased. The drugs loosened their grip and some relief came before the cold sensation returned to his bowels. "No!
Oh, please, no. Please just kill me. Please.
Connor already expelled the last contents of his stomach. The osculation of the process continued for the next 4 hours as he grew weary of even trying to scream or cuss at the techs for their cruelty. They hadn't asked him any questions, they just administered the pain and maddening terror. And then the process shifted to the ocular atomizing meisters that had been providing moisture to Connor's eyes all through his ordeal, and now an unfamiliar sting is beginning to add to his overloaded senses. And then he felt fear, like he had never felt it before, and then the loathing of doom as the pharmaceuticals grabbed his mind. As this process was beginning, a large 72-inch flat-screen monitor was lowered in position by a motorized, articulated arm, and as the monitor came to life, it displayed an image of a Gugwe, and Connor shrieked in terror, and the monitor moved closer. The image displayed was a tiger, and then a severe shock was delivered by the electrodes. The monitor moved back to its original distance, and then his eyes stung again, and the fear turned to absolute terror, and his screams were tremendous and agonizing, even to the hardest of hearts and devoid of compassion. The monitor flashed Gugwe, and then the electrodes chimed their chorus as the tiger's image moved across the monitor and was moved closer to him by the motorized arm. The cycles of the mental, emotional, physical and psychological torment changed from an oscillation of horror to a composite of torment and harrowing spiritual degradation. The voice on the loudspeaker in the room repeating, "You've seen a tiger. It was a tiger." As the monitor displayed the image over time, the image of the tiger and the Gugwe intermingled, merging into one image as Connor would see it displayed, and it drove him into the darkest places in his soul, as his bowels were inflated with a very warm, almost hot fluid intermixed with a pharmaceutical that was absorbed by the vascular system of the bowel. It created a need and intense desire to push like he was having a bowel movement on steroids. The pain, anguish, the loathing of loss and unimaginable terror were his companions over the whole of the 12-hour session. The final pharmaceutical was administered and Connor's world went black. When he awoke, he was lying face down on the floor of the stainless steel room, with every muscle, ligament, tendon and orifice as painful reminders of his experience and the new understanding that monsters are real and they are walking right beside you. Home, sweet home. Not. The beasts were bashing at the door of the fallback as the safe site fell to the horde. The creatures enveloped the site and searched for anything and anyone they could devour. Becoming agitated, the beast began to rip and tear into the younger Gugwe as a frenzy of cannibalistic filicide. Jake and his crew of veterans and people with the will to do what is required to survive stood ready to repel any and all that would come through that door. The door frame began to loosen under the barrage of beast's blows, and Jake moved up to the door and tried to brace it with his shoulder, and he was joined by several other men, but because of the small hallway, only limited amounts of men could brace the door directly, so the men began to brace themselves against each other. The men and others taking shelter in the site began to hear a low hum, a very electrical hum, and in a few seconds the beast at the door shrieked and could be heard running from the door. Jake and the men looked at each other with questioning suspense and started wondering what the creatures were attempting now. Jake then ordered everyone to move back to the line of the floor he'd established earlier. About an hour went by and they could hear movement in the building above them. And then about 15 minutes later, he heard movement outside of the door. One of the men yelled, "Here they come again! Get ready!" Then 3 booms on the door. "US military! Is anybody in there?" was heard in the room. Jake yelled back, "Yes, we're in here." The other male voice responded, "Stand back! We're going to blow the door." Jake and the other men started to move everyone away from the door, and in seconds it was on the floor. The soldiers entered a large basement and began helping to remove the survivors and placing them on 18 school buses that were lined up outside the gym. When Jake emerged from the stone building, He was shocked and amazed at the level of destruction just outside of the gym's door. Rubble of buildings burned out and hulks of vehicles were strewn all about the area, and the stench of the beasts and the burnt husks of their bodies were permeating everything and everybody. The buses were arriving at the Will Burton High School football field stadium, where tents and portable shelters for bathrooms and field kitchens were set up, and medical tents and trucks were staged. Chief Jenkins asked one of the sergeants that were helping at the camp with check-in and assessment of the survivors. "I'm Chief Jenkins of the Red Oak Police Department. I need to speak to the person in charge of this operation," said the chief. The sergeant responded, "Sir, I need for you to proceed to the processing and decontamination. Then we'll see what I can do to help you with your concerns." The chief then stated, "Now look, I have known these people a long time. They will listen to me. I can make this move easier for them and you guys if you let me help. I can lead them in a way that makes this more comfortable for them, so we can get through this." He finished as he was looking at the name tag on a utility shirt of the sergeant. "So, his name is Baker, and he is in the U.S. Army, DAI, he said to himself. "Hey, Sergeant, what's your branch of service?" the chief said, pointing at his tag. "I'm Army, sir," he stated as a matter of fact. "Yeah, but what's the DAI?" the chief questioned. "Sir, I'm not at a liberty to discuss that topic with you. Please, sir, move along to the processing," the sergeant said, cold and mechanical in tone. Chief then nodded and walked towards processing. About halfway to the in-processing tent, the chief began to stumble, clutching his chest, and went to one knee. Several soldiers came running and carried the chief into the medical tent, and he was checked over, and nothing could be found medically, but through the art of a small town's police chief's ability to small talk his way into getting information without actually asking any questions. The chief was sitting in an in-processing tent and was making mental notes. And so the U.S. Army DAI means U.S. Army Direct Action Initiative. He also observed that there were Marines, Navy and Air Force members here, all with a DAI after their branch name. And another thing, he didn't see any sheriffs, highway patrolmen or OSBI, short for Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. Not one or any of them. The chief said to himself, "That's damn weird. Something is up, and I'm gonna find out what." It's as if the Caesars have returned. The operational tempo seemed to be picking up around the base, and Harley, Big Mike and Jameson were standing by the fence of the tent, looking at the heliport that was hastily laid out and established on the open field to the east of the main base. 2 Black Hawk Helios were already parked on the makeshift landing grid. When they heard the sound of approaching rotor blades, but the sound blades were different than any other helo that they had ever heard. Harley thought that he recognized it, but there was something different, and it was getting closer. Harley figured it was coming in from the southwest. The aircraft came in from the southwest, and its flight path took it across the camp. The craft circled the heliports and made for landing pad 3A, as it was designated and indicated on the ground by premiered 6-foot-wide white vinyl tapes, pre-cut and stenciled. It was tacked to the ground with 8-inch pins. The craft was foreign to Big Mike and Jameson, but Harley had been hearing about it for about a year before he left the military. "Man, I didn't think that they would have them this quick. It usually takes them years for them to generate them to this level of readiness," Harley said with surprise. "Okay, I'll bite. What the fuck is it?" Big Mike chimed in. "It's something that Sikorsky and Bowen have been working on for a while. As a joint multiple-role copter. I think they called it the Vertical Lift Program. It's called SB-1, I think. I don't believe that the military had the nomenclature for it yet. See those coaxial rotors? They spin in opposite directions, and that means you have no tail rotor. But in its place, you have an octo-turbo prop, which means it's fast, top speed 315 knots. That's about 350 miles per hour. Fast in, fast out. 2 Honeywell engines, not sure of the size.
Man, I'd love to get a ride in one of those, Harley said as he stared in amazement with an almost erotic overtone in his voice. You know I always wanted to fly. I just wasn't sharp enough to fly them. I was just dumb enough to jump out of them, though. He laughed with both of them. Damn, do you need some time alone to take care of it? Jameson said, laughing, while looking at Big Mike, while Jameson was pointing at Harley's crotch. Take care of what? Harley said with a puzzled look. Wee boy, you need to spend some time in the rear with a gear and a happy hodo, Big Mike said with a shit-eating grin. Yeah, Harley snickered. The copter landed and the side door opened and several soldiers got out dressed in green and brown camouflage, and then one other soldier stepped, more like hopped out of the copter. He was dressed in what looked like black and grey camouflage, MOD style, black boots and a grey beret with a red flash in the apex. The man carried a Chris Vector rifle suppressed, and Harley instantly didn't like this guy. Just something about him. He hadn't even met him or knew his name, and Harley already wanted to brain pound him. You see that son of a bitch right there? As Harley pointed to the man. That one there. You do not want to trust or let him close to you, Jameson said. Why would you say that? Harley replied. I used to work for fucks like him. It's just the way he carries himself. That one's in charge of this mess. Boys, we need to be on guard when it comes to him. Floyd then joined the guys at the fence. Whew, that's a slick-looking bitch, isn't it? What in the hell is a U.S. Army DAI? Huh? What are you talking about? Big Mike piped up. That insignia on the side of the bird, Floyd said, pointing at the hello. I never seen that before, Jameson added. Neither have I, Harley said with surprise. As the man continued to walk to the command tent, there was a general rush to pay respect or steer clear. Most steered clear. Harley watched the daggers in his eyes as the man disappeared into the cavernous tent. Hippocratic Oath, AD 245. I will abstain from all intentional wrongdoing and harm. Sure. As the door clicked, Connor struggled to his feet. He had been awake for about 3 hours now, hungry and thirsty. He hoped that they would be letting him go. He doesn't want to go through that shit again. The 3 guards entered, and his fear level jumped through the, oh God, not this again, and then walked the lady in the lab coat from the first time. He tried to sink back into the wall, and he began to cry as the memory of the session began to surface. She sat a tray with no large metal cups on it, and she said, Come on, boy, come get it. And she stood still. He shook his head back and forth. He wanted to cuss her out and try to get out of the room, but the fear kept him in place. Fear literally locked him in his footsteps. She turned and walked out, and the guards left, except the last one, and he said in an ominous fashion, You realize that you will be doing what we want, even though you don't want to or like to. You'll even do things, even unnatural things, things that you would never do for anyone, man or woman, but you'll do them anyway. As he turned and walked out of the door and locked it behind him, Connor wiped the sweat away from his face with his left hand and walked over to the table. One cup had water in it and the other had a chocolate shake. He downed them and he had to have something in his stomach. He couldn't figure out why he was crying, why his mind was scattered, and he was unable to focus on one single thought, and his mind was racing at incredible speeds about what he could not say. Another hour passed and the door clicked again. 6 guards stormed in and grabbed him, and the familiar psst, psst of an injector gun, and then he went limp once more. As before, he started his terrifying journey to room G-601. The maddening terror was masterfully precise as it coiled around Connor's mind, and a macabre fear that gripped his soul, and pictures of Jerry in bed with Connor's girlfriend flashed across the monitor. This sent him into a fury of anger and hate, coupled with his hurt and heartbreak that he experienced in his mind. As the pharmaceuticals tore and ripped across his mind's landscape of time and reality, as the sounds of the act of sex between Jerry and Connor's girlfriend boomed over the speakers in the room,
and the man speaking kept reminding him that if he says anything other than it was a tiger, that Jerry will have sexual relations with his girlfriend more than he.
Remember, it was a tiger.
As the ocular phase began, and fear, panic, and horrific nightmares that have raged across his mind have now become his reality. The composite of the physical, emotional stress and the effects of the psycho-optic, medications and visual stimulation coupled with the sonic effects, his mind played a constant suite of waking night terrors with reckless intent. This was finally more than his young body could physically process. At this point in the session, he went into a respiratory arrest. The lead tech said, "Oh shit, incubate him now!" And the table spun 90 degrees and Connor was on his back, and the head bracket pivoted down, allowing an airway to be naturally opened, and a laryngoscope was inserted into his throat, allowing an endotracheal tube, or ET, to be inserted into his esophagus. As the tube was attached to the ventilator unit, the cuff was inflated, allowing airway to be sealed, and the breathing rate was re-established. And after a 3-hour period, Connor was breathing on his own. The tube was removed. Connor returned to consciousness, and the session resumed. Connor would endure 5 sessions in total, 2 more than Jerry. The lead tech would collect his bet from the other techs, as he said, "I told you, the little trailer bitch was one tough piece of ass to bust. Thou shalt not bear false witnesses against thy neighbour." As the reporter asked questions of the 2 young men, the young man said all the correct things. As the man dressed in black and grey camouflage watched the monitor, as the interview was completed, the man instructed the reporter to get that out onto the wire and push it on to all social media platforms. The others will be ready in a few days. The man, turning to one of his aides, said, "You know, Watkins, the hardest thing about this job is knowing who to recycle, or who to re-educate, or who to repurpose. I think we should let those 2 recycle. They might be useful someday. Cut them loose, but before you do, have Miss Duncan install a leash, just in case." "Yes, sir," Captain Watkins replied with a snap in his voice. The leash was installed in Jerry in 1 session, but Connor took 2 very long sessions. He ain't heavy. Jerry and Connor were zip-tied and black-bagged and told to keep quiet. And they were placed in a vehicle, and after a 40-minute ride, they were walked upstairs and told to sit. Connor figured that he was sitting on a bed, and then the zip ties were cut and they were told to count to 30 after the door closed, before they could remove the bag. The room resembled a double-bed hotel room, what might be considered medium fare by most. The 2 guys sat on the beds opposite each other, and the room was quiet, rather peaceful. They stared at each other's shoes and remained silent for about another hour and a half. When Connor was the first to speak, "Do you remember anything?" And Jerry shook his head to the negative, while still looking down. "I'm not sure I want to remember anything, Connor. I just want it all to go away," he said with a pain in his voice. "Jerry, let's get out of here, wherever here is," Connor said while standing up. "Man, I can't move. I'm so afraid, and I don't know what I'm afraid of. It's like it's all around me." Jerry spoke in a confused manner while looking at Connor with a tear in his eye. "Look, Jerry, I can't feel my hands. I can't feel my feet. And when I do feel anything that might touch me or I touch it, it makes me feel like jumping out of my skin. My muscles crawl. It's the nastiest feeling I've ever known, boy. I just want to get home. I want to see my family. I want to see my girlfriend," Connor said in a rising sense of anger, and then he looked at Jerry with a dawn of something realized. "Jerry, you goddamn fucker!" Connor jumped on Jerry, punching him, trying to strangle him, and the fight rolled around the room like a hurricane. "Why, Jerry? Why did you fuck her? Jerry, why? Why would you do that to me? Why would you trash our friendship? We were like brothers, man. Why?" Connor screamed while crying like his heart had been ripped out. Jerry pushed Connor off of him and got to his feet while wiping the blood from his lip.
Do you really think I fucked her? If I wanted her, why would I even introduce you to her? Think about it, Connor. If I wanted it, do you really think that I would have gotten you two together?
Connor got up ready to pound Jerry again, then turned to the wall and punched it with his right fist, causing it to dent in the drywall. And then he put both hands flat against the wall and lowered his head and hands, and stood there breathing like a prize fighter that just gave it all and lost his bout.
Connor, brother, are you okay?
Jerry asked. A long pause, and Connor looked up at the wall, staring into it, and said,
They really have mind-fucked us, haven't they?
Hey man, I don't want to know. I don't want to remember. I don't want to have anything to do with what happened to us. These people are bad, like really fucking bad. I want to forget it, Jerry said with a resolution in his voice. Jerry picked up a chair that had been knocked over during the fight. He turned it and sat it backwards, facing Connor.
Are we okay with each other, Bubba?
Jerry said cautiously. I think we will be. I don't know what to believe. It's like I think I know, then I see things in my head.
I hate this damn feeling,
Connor said while throwing the mattress back onto the bed frame and flopping down onto it, landing on his back.
I'm sorry, brother,
Connor said quietly while looking at the ceiling.
Don't worry about it.
You still hit like a girl, Jerry said while laughing, and his laughter was joined by Connor's. Jerry may have been laughing, but he was rubbing his jaw and his tongue was feeling around the loose teeth on his right side of his jaw. Connor jumped up and said,
Let's get the hee-hi hell out of here.
And with that, the boys opened the door and walked out into the sun. And after going down the stairs, Jerry walked over to the office of the motel and went in and asked the clerk who registered the room 202. After some begging, she said, Well, let's see. Okay, here it is. Jerry Dalton. Jerry looked confused.
I rented it?
Are you Jerry Dalton? She said.
Yes,
Jerry responded. She looked even more confused.
Okay,
Jerry said.
Thanks, ma'am.
Connor and Jerry turned and walked out. They both walked to the street, and Connor walked around and turned.
I know where we are. We're at the Travelers Inn Motel in fucking Wilburton. We need a phone. See if the clerk will let you use hers, Jerry said.
The clerk did, and Connor called his aunt. Well, his ex-aunt, and she picked them up and took them back over to her house, which was about 15 minutes away. They made up a story of how they got to the motel, and that they got drunk and got picked up by some girls, and the girls left them, and Connor's truck is back in Red Oak. It seemed that she didn't know what was going on, other than there was a truck or train accident, and that a large number of tigers had gotten loose and were hunting people. And Connor asked if they could borrow his uncle's truck, and Connor promised that he would bring it back because his uncle owed her some money, and she wanted something that he would want back, she jokingly said. She also told them about the large army presence in town, and because of the escaped tigers, the boys looked at each other and smiled. She told them that the soldiers were over at the school, and that they were bringing people from Red Oak over here to care for them. After they got to his aunt's house, she gave the truck keys to Connor. They hugged, and the boys rolled out. Country life is about the back roads. You can't get there from here, but you can if you use the back roads, goat trails and creek washes. Then you can get anywhere in the country, as long as you remember to close the gate. An hour and a half later, they were sitting in the driveway of Jerry's house, and Jerry told Connor to stop just inside the driveway.
What, Bubba?
Said Connor.
Mom's SUV is here. She was supposed,
Jerry replied. Go to the gym? That's what you told her to do, said Connor.
Oh shit, brother. I don't like this. She shouldn't be here. That damn truck shouldn't be here,
Jerry said with extreme concern. Connor rolled the truck slowly down the drive and parked it in the circle drive.
Man, bro, we better be careful,
Jerry said with concern.
This just doesn't feel right,
Connor said quietly.
I hope we don't run into any of those tigers,
Jerry said in a serious tone. Connor looked at Jerry with an unbelievable stare. They got out of the truck and walked cautiously up to the porch stairs. They creaked, and they stopped and looked at each other as if to say, "Stop that." And then Connor saw it. Blood on the front door jamb. "Dude," he pointed to the smear. "Oh shit, no, no," Jerry let out with a sense of exhaustion. Jerry barged into the house and they started calling for his mom. "Mom! Mom! Ty! Ann!" Jerry was on the verge of losing his calm. "Connor, where's my mom and the twins?" "Oh, look, brother, we need to get some weapons, man," Connor said, grabbing Jerry by the shoulders with anxiousness in his voice. "And stop fucking yelling." "Oh yeah, tigers," Jerry said and started walking towards his dad's office. Connor standing looking at Jerry, walking away from him and throwing his hands in the air while shaking his head in complete, unbelievable amazement. Jerry then entered his dad's office, punched a combination on the gun safe. He opened it and started to pull a pool ball pup tactical 12-gauge shotgun for Connor, and then his hand stopped. He took one of his dad's AR-15s the other night, but his dad's other AR is missing. "Ooh, Dad's rifle is gone," Jerry lamented. "You mean the one you took?" Connor responded with a look of "Don't you remember?" "No, his second one," Jerry said. "Well, maybe your mom took it?" Connor replied like question solved. "Nah, she doesn't like it." Jerry's tone shifted. "She would take a pistol," Jerry continued, as he reached for it and pulled it out. "Ooh, damn," Jerry said while fighting tears. "Okay, what does that mean?" Connor asked. "Dad's been here. Dad's fucking been here," Jerry said with a grin. "So that means your dad," Connor added, "went looking for us," Jerry and Connor said in unison. "Oh, damn! Search the house!" Jerry exclaimed as he jumped with nervous action and tone as the boys searched the upstairs. The windows were open and the air felt good, but they found nothing out of the ordinary or any trace of Jerry's mum or the twins. They went downstairs and found that the kitchen was ripped apart. The search became frantic. Connor passed the dining room table when a notepad caught his eye, and he looked at it and called for Jerry. "Jerry, man, get the fuck over here!" Connor yelled, and Jerry ran over to Connor at the table, and Connor handed him the pad. Jerry read the note on the pad. "Randy, baby, you need to get to the mud park and help Jerry and Connor find Billy. Something bad has happened. Me and the twins are going to the old gym. They've set up a shelter there, and we're..." The note stops abruptly. She stopped in mid-sentence. "We gotta keep looking," Jerry ordered. The boys began to search the basement and were ready to walk out the door when they realized they didn't look in the garage. They walked through the disarrayed kitchen and opened the door between the garage and the utility room. The door in the utility room to the garage was open, and the 3-car garage is empty. He checked his dad's workshop and shook his head. They turned to walk out, and then there was a tap on the metal door of the Tornado safe room. That's on the far side of the garage. The noise almost made them jump out of their skin, and they both drew their weapons on the door. Connor with his shotgun and Jerry with his dad's 1911 .45 caliber pistol. Both boys were breathing like stallions that finished the last lap. "I take it that you heard that," Connor said. "Yes," Jerry replied. "What room is that?" Connor asked. "Tornado safe room," Jerry stated. "Anything in there that would make that noise?" Connor asked. "Nope," Jerry replied. They looked at each other and then they walked to the door. As the boys walked over to the door and Jerry put his hand on the door, Jerry looked at Connor and nodded. Jerry pushed the door and both drew with their weapons as their eyes fell on the twins, Ty and Ann. "Oh damn, are you guys alright, huh?" Jerry said as he comforted the twins while checking them over. "Bubba, we really need to go," Connor said in an almost demanding tone. "Where's Mum?" Jerry asked. She put us in here and then she said that she needed to go back and get something and she never came back," Ty said, whimpering. "Okay. Well, we get out of here and we're going to go to Uncle Derek's, okay?" Jerry said while pointing to the door. Jerry picked up Ty and Connor grabbed Ann. The group made their way for the door and down the porch stairs to the SUV. They loaded the twins and Connor ran over to the truck to grab some flashlights and some other things. Jerry put the twins in their booster seats. "I'm gonna go get the extra set of keys," Jerry shouted. "All right, bro," Connor hollered back. Jerry ran back up the porch stairs and into the entry of the house, and then into his dad's office, pulled out the key to the key box in his dad's center drawer of his desk. He walked over to the key box and inserted the key. He then heard the rapid pops of a 9mm pistol he gave Connor. All 15 rounds repoured in his ears. "Oh shit," Jerry yelled. He turned the key and the box flew open and he grabbed the extra set of keys. And just at that moment, he heard the loud booms of Connor's shotgun. As Jerry ran out of the door, the sight was one of wonder and frightening terror. His eyes were captivated by the blood cloud expanding behind the Gugwe's head, just as Connor pulled the barrel of the shotgun out of the beast's mouth, and the creature fell lifeless. Jerry slowly approached Connor, still locked onto the Gugwe, blood splattered in his face and shirt. He was shaking from the adrenaline in his system, and his breathing was so heavy he might as well have been hyperventilating. "Connor?" Jerry asked quietly. His body jerked to react to Jerry. "Now tell me, does that look like a fucking tiger to you?" With unbelievable frustration in his voice. Jerry just shrugged his shoulders. The dust cloud rose quickly, and the 2 young men and 2 7-year-old twins roared down the dirt road as fast as their SUV would carry them. About a mile down the road, Jerry said in a low, calm voice, "It could have been a tiger." "Oh, would you let it go, Bubba?" Connor said, shocked and dismayed, as Jerry smiled and concentrated on the road. Fate whispers to the warrior, "You cannot withstand the storm." The warrior replied, "I am the storm." Author unknown. The base camp was alive with activity. The Tactical Operations Center, or TOC, is the nexus of data gathering, analysis and management of dissemination, and the hub of command, control, communications, computers, intelligence and interoperability for the commander and the command of organic and inorganic military, governmental, organizational detachments and non-governmental organizational liaisons. The TOC is located in areas that are not at risk for direct combat or insurgent actions. That is why Wilburton High School was chosen for the site of the TOC. Mobile Tactical Medical Complex, Mobile Confinement Center, Mobile Field Expedient, Shelter Multiplex, and Tactical Air Support Center. And from his position at the fence of the confinement center, Harley had been reconnoitering the site. "It's amazing what you can find out, if you just look," he said to Big Mike. "The boys and myself, we're getting pretty damn tired of sitting around here, waiting for someone to debrief and clear us for release," said a frustrated Big Mike. Yeah, but my bed is comfy, and the gym is nice and the food is pretty good," joked Harley. Big Mike slapped Harley's right butt cheek and said, "Yeah, but my bitch is a piss poor fuck," as he walked away laughing. Harley, in a true smart-ass fashion, responded, "Well, that's not what you said last night, baby. I could hardly get you off of it." As Big Mike was walking away, flying the big double middle finger over his shoulders, and Harley yelled, "Don't be cruel, you big tease." Yeah, sometimes compressed stress operators verbally rape each other because it creates a mental movement. It reduces the stress of the situation, builds character and camaraderie, plus it's fucking funny. In the TOC, Master Sergeant Kelly was giving his reports to the Captain Ross, head of the G2, the intelligence section. Master Sergeant Kelly informed the captain that there were significant numbers of military veterans in the area of the operation, and that it would be prudent to keep tabs on the subjects, and it may be necessary to bring them into corral. "We have approximately 19 in the corral right now, and he is getting their DD-214s, of which the service record jackets should be transmitted from the Military Personal Record Center, or MPRC, within the next 2 hours. "That's excellent, Captain."
Some may be helpful and others we may need to assess their disposition. I know General Tate will want to be briefed on the demographic cross-section as soon as possible. First Lieutenant Miller, had the reconnaissance and assessment teams reported yet? Asked the captain. Not in complete form, but we are starting to get a picture that is becoming problematic with multiple streams of cars coming into focus. Clearly, we have underestimated the scope and range of the incident. The scale of the issue resolution is going to be seriously consequential to the closure of this incident. The limits of our mandate will be majorly tested within boundaries of the current situation, stated the lieutenant. Keep me informed. I will be briefing the general early this afternoon. Time to be determined, stated the captain. Captain Ross and the town's councilman and the mayor are in the debriefing room and are expecting to be informed of the situation, the staff sergeant reported to the captain. Good. Have them packaged and sent to the Transfiguration Center. Notify TC that they will be receiving 7 for the reality conversion therapy on my authority, stated the captain. Another staff sergeant informed Captain Ross that Director Barrett wanted an update on the current situation, and the captain redirected the request to General Tate by saying, I don't want to talk to that man. Send it over to the general. That man is his concern. Later that afternoon, Captain Ross and several other officers, non-commissioned officers, and the presidentially appointed General Tate were seated around the conference table in the Tuck Annex. Thank you for your briefing, Captain Ross. It seems that they were significantly underestimations at the onset of this incident. What is the timeline for mopping up and procurement of the specimens? Stated General Tate. General, we have begun a major operation of policing the dead and dying specimens and prioritizing aid of the wounded and injured prey targets. We have 5 living specimens, 3 juveniles and 2 male. One of those males we believe is an alpha. We have yet to procure a female alpha. They seem to be more elusive and proportionally smaller than the male specimens, but are far more aggressive, stated Lieutenant Colonel Sanders, G3 Operations and Planning. And what are their preliminary genetics of the specimens? Asked the General. Well, General, without having some of our more comprehensive results, we're questioning if maybe there was a contamination of the samples. But in a word, we are puzzled by the picture of the chromosomal arrangements of the specimen's genetic makeup. As you know, humans have 46 chromosomes. Mandrillus sphinxes or mandrills have 42 chromosomes. Cape baboons have 42 chromosomes. Gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees all have 48. As best as we can ascertain from the data at this point, the specimens are comprised of 3% human, 14% gorillas, 6% orangutans, 5% chimpanzees, 27% Cape baboon, and 43% mandrill sphinx. All mandrills having been identified by these genetic markers in the chromosomal horizon and placing them in close proximity primates based on their cyclogenic homology. But there is a 2% of specimens chromosomal composite we cannot identify. And this grouping of the composites share the highest number of haplotypes in the specimens sampled, stated Captain Ross of the G2 Intelligence Section. Yeah, but what the hell does all this high-tech talk mean? Growled the General. The short answer is we don't know. We can speculate that with a high amount of haplotypes, that the specimen is more than likely engineered, said the captain with a hesitation. The General's face went white and dropped. Engineered? Engineered by who? The captain replied. Unknown. And how confident are you in these results? The General questioned. The analysis say that it's better than 88% confidence, the captain responded. After a long pause, the General spoke. This incident is now reclassified to top secret DAI-21214. The staff and other members at the table began to actively discuss, and that moved into multiple directions at the same time, and then the Colonel Childers spoke, begging the General's pardon, but Is this classification only allowed to be invoked by a general staff officer approved by the Senate? I mean, no disrespect, but I'm concerned that we may be outside the lines of law and violating the National Security Act or Constitution. Your concerns are warranted, Colonel, but under the memorandum of Notification 608, several at the table looked puzzled, and the General continued. Otherwise known as a presidential finding that authorizes a covert action to address national security objectives. But, sir, isn't that for only foreign policy objectives? Questioned the Colonel. Not since 9/11, Colonel Childers. Any further questions or concerns, Colonel? The General spoke with a reserved irritation. No, sir, the Colonel replied. This meeting is adjourned, said the General. As the meeting broke up, Master Sergeant Kelly reported to the General. Sir, I have the service jackets of the veterans we have in the corral, 19 in total. Kelly handed them to the General and spoke. I think there is one you'll be most interested in. It is on top. Henry Mitch Jones, Staff Sergeant, promotable before separation. 12 years of active service, most if not all of the Ranger battalions and or regimental detachments. Has held top-secret compartmented clearances for the majority of his service stint. Master parachutist, air assault, pathfinder, scuba qualified, high altitude, low opening qualified Halo, Ranger tab, and attended ICS. General looked stumped. Oh, and Israeli Commando School. A host of medals and awards, almost all of them, along with the reasons for awarding them, they're classified. A comment by the Command Sergeant Major of the 3rd Battalion had this to say on Jones' performance review, before he was promoted to Sergeant E5. I highly recommend Specialist 4 Jones to be promoted to the non-commissioned officers cadre. It's been my experience with men like Specialist Jones that, with a little polish and guidance, that he could lead a squad of rabid monkeys through a china shop and not one plate would be disturbed. It is in my opinion that over my 28 years of service in the United States Army, that men like Specialist 4 Jones, if given the opportunity to show their mettle and allowed to grasp of command and leadership, grow to be lifelong members of military service. They serve with distinction and honor. These men constitute and represent the qualities and would bring great credit upon himself and the United States Army. Command Sergeant Major Roger K. Emerson, 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. Does this son of a bitch walk on water too? The General barked. If the Army at the time he was active asked him to. Quite possibly, sir, Kelly stated. I have made note of a few others that have already seen action during this incident, and yes, the water walker is one of them, sir, Kelly continued. General Tate did not look amused, and then said, Set me up with Jones tomorrow morning. I'm leaving for the AO. I want to inspect the operation. Yes, sir, Kelly saluted and said, Be sure to take your rain gear, sir. It looks like rain over the area of operations, sir. Kelly turned and walked out. You know, when there's nothing left to do but to fight with everything you've got to get back up, there's a word for it. Resilience. Tyler Way, leadership strategist. Connor and Jerry, along with the twins, pulled into Jerry's uncle's driveway. It was a long, rough trip across the northern Kiamichis, running the back roads and logging trails, and after 5.5 hours, they pulled up. Jerry's seen his Uncle Derek was working on one of 6 trucks that were parked all over the yard in various states of assembly. Jerry told his uncle about the last 4 days and that his mum, Dad and Billy are missing. His uncle and cousin Kurt were intently listening to the horror of the tale that was being relayed to them. And Jerry's uncle, a former Marine, told his wife and his 2 younger sons to take care of the twins and guard the house. He told Kurt that he needed to get to his pack and his rifle and pistol, and that they were going to go look for his brother and his family. Kurt was 20, a year older than Jerry, and was a Southern Oklahoma farm boy and could take care of himself in a scrape. About an hour later, they were in Derek's Chevy truck, rolling to the closest town of Kinta. They arrived at the Easy Mart at Broadway and Hoyt Street.
Derek walked in and told his cousin Lance what was going on in Red Oak and that they needed to get some supplies. Lance told him to get what they needed and he would cover them. With the truck filled with fuel and several fuel cans extra and supplies for at least 4 or 5 days, they hit the back roads in Red Oak. As they topped the peak, the last rays of sunlight blinked out from behind the hills to the west. In 30 minutes, it would be dark. Just then, the right front tyre blew. "Damn!" Derek grunted, and they came to a stop, and Derek, Lance and Jerry set about jacking up the truck to get the big 48-inch tyre off and replaced with one of the 2 spares. Connor climbed up onto the cab of the truck to keep watch on the surrounding area. He got one of those feelings, and so far, he'd been right. As dusk was setting in, Connor noticed some movement off to the east. Some bushes were moving, and there was no wind to move them. Connor raised his AR-15 with a Nikon scope that Jerry's uncle gave him and began to line up a firing lane of whatever this was, and then it emerged from the tree line. It was tall, skinny, but was thick-chested. Its arms were long and past its waist, almost to its knees, and it was covered in long, scraggly hair. The colour of the hair wasn't black. It was almost lighter, maybe brown or reddish. It didn't move, and like the monsters he had seen and shot earlier, almost lumbering with its walk hunched slightly over. He thought it looked over at him, but the lack of light prevented him from seeing much more than that. He was about to shoot when the figure moved off into the tree line and away from them, and he thought, "Wow, I don't know what that was." The guys got the tyre changed as Connor told them about what he'd seen. Jerry's uncle piped up, "Yeah, they're out here. Those things will leave you alone if you leave them alone. Now these other things you boys told me about, I have never seen." And they started back onto the trail to Red Oak, with hope in their hearts. Man is affected not by events, but by the view he takes of them. Seneca 4 BC. Jameson, Big Mike and Tracy were setting up on some chairs in a television tent watching the news broadcast when a reporter began to report on the tiger attacks in Leflore County, town of Red Oak, and they were interviewing 2 young men, Jerry Dalton and Connor Billings. Did they just say tigers attacked them?" said Jameson in a shocked tone. "Yup," said Big Mike. This stinks. This stinks to high hell," Tracy said, disgusted. Dalton. I think I know his Uncle Derek," Big Mike said. "That's sure not the kid I remember. He looks like he's on something. Look at his eyes," Jameson piped in. "This is why they haven't released us yet. They're floating this bullshit story so if the truth gets out, it's already ghosted," said Big Mike. There is some slime going on here," Tracy chimed in. "Man, Harley needs to hear about this," Jameson stated with determination. Jameson got out of the chair and went off to find Harley. The boys continued to listen to the telecast, and it seemed that, with every word, it just made Big Mike angrier. You know, Big Mike, I think you're sexy when you get mad," Tracy said, grinning. Big Mike responded coldly. Tracy sat in his chair, grinning and laughing. Harley and Jameson came into the tent about 30 minutes later, almost as the report was repeating on the channel. Floyd came in about halfway through the report. "What the hell?" Floyd uttered. "You know, I've been thinking, maybe these things are like Bigfoot." The guys erupted in laughter, and Big Mike shook his head. "No, really, guys, look, sometimes I listen to those YouTube channels. You know, everyday people make videos and put them up on their own channel. I mean, if you sat down and listened, there's some good stuff out there." The boys sat in disbelief that Floyd was a Bigfoot nut. Yeah, I know, I get it. And there's some really crappy stuff too, like people reading stories about crazy stuff, but sometimes you run across those channels that, well, they make you think. And there is this one, Wild Bigfoot Radio. Man, the guy that runs it, he's a real bonehead, but he has some really good stuff on the subject. "Bigfoot? Really?" Jameson shouted. "After what we've been through, what we've seen, what we killed, what grabbed us, this is all you have, Bigfoot.
Oh man, I need a shot of whiskey. Harley is tapping his forehead with his index finger on his right hand. Big Mike is, well, being Big Mike, and Tracy is on the floor rolling around, and Floyd continued. Think about it. They look like baboons, and Bigfoot looks like a gorilla, but you do not see the connection? He said, a little exasperated. And Jameson said, This is Southeastern Oklahoma. There's no gorillas, baboons, or motherfucking Bigfoot, big feet and or big dick monkeys running around out here. What we got into out here was a freaking monster. I don't give a fuck about what it is, and it's a killer. Harley stepped up and ended the conversation. Look, we need to work on getting our shit together and out of this prison because that's what it is. Brothers, tomorrow morning, I'm going to start making waves and I need you guys to back me up. And it could get a little bumpy, said Harley with that look in his eye. Oh crap, Tracy exclaimed. Well, I guess I'd better wear clean underwear tomorrow, Jameson chimed. I'm not changing mine, said Big Mike. If you're going through hell, keep going. Winston Churchill. The containment site is located just inside the loop of 286 in Paris, Texas, on the north side of the town. It's made to look as if it's an abandoned sheet metal fabrication shop. The building supplies ample room for the operations. 41,500 square feet of space provides room for the containment concourse, examination suite and enough security that will make anyone feel secure. The site is serviced by a railroad spur that allows specimens to be shipped in by train or semi-truck. The location also provides privacy for the operation and above all, it is a non-discrete, plain and ordinary, so as not to attract attention. The risk to the population is minimal, and the nearest single-family home is 1.5 miles to the southwest and 1/4 mile to the east, and a multi-family complex. 3 of the 15 containment pods were utilized and more specimens were en route to the facility and should arrive in a few days. The site was in operation 24/7, and this night the staff had 3 new trainee guards/handlers added to the roster and 4 experienced guards for the night shift. The facility is also backed up by a 17-man Quick Reaction Force or QRF that furnishes the guard/handler with more than adequate support. Specimen number 315-GB was pacing in Containment Pod 3, and the specimen is of a late adolescent male captured during the Wichita National Biological Preserve incident 18 months ago. And since its arrival, the specimen has grown about a foot and increased its weight by 103 pounds, making the specimen 6.2 feet and weighing 509 pounds. Joe Beck was new on the job here, and the DAI Specimen Confinement Facility number 3. At 26 years of age, and having had only a part-time job in his career view, he wanted something more permanent and, well, exciting. And Joe always wanted to join the military so he could sit at a family dinner table on holidays and talk shop with his brothers, father, 3 uncles and his cousin. He felt so left out of the conversation since they had their adventures and exciting mishaps of military life, no matter the branch. If it wasn't for the need to feel useful and have some importance in his life, he would have been content with staying at his GameStop job or the Best Buy customer care advocate. That would have been just fine. But he wanted more. Wanted motion in his life, experiences. His uncle vouched for him with a government contracting firm who will remain nameless, and that's how he ended up here. However, with his new security clearance, he is back to not having anything to talk about when he is at the dining room table on holidays yet again. And Joe has been on the 3rd shift for about 10 weeks now, and for the most part it's been pretty boring, mundane, and it's driving him nuts. But the pay, it's awesome. Joe Beck's account of what happens on the night of July XXXXX at 0338 hours Zulu, while working on Charlie's shift at the DAI Specimen Confinement Facility Site number 3. Please note, some of the statement has been redacted for security purposes. United States Senate Select Committee on Intelligence classified the excerpt, but it was never stricken from the public record because of a posting error 4 years after.
the incident in Red Oak. However, it was reclassified and pulled from the public records, but was retrieved by a search of a mirror server in its redacted/excerpt form from the Federal Records Centers of the National Archives and Records Administration by a Freedom of Information Act search executed for an unnamed watchdog organization whose focus is wildlife research. Statement excerpt begins. Ricky Edwards was a new hire. He had been here for only 3 weeks, and I was on shift with him. Ricky had mouth and propensity to blow hot air 24 hours a day. He was forgetful, and he was a slob. Leaved his stuff everywhere. Well, he was 22 years after all. But man, if I did a fraction of what he got away with, I'd have my butt handed to me. We was doing the 0330 hours transfer of specimen number 315-GB to another confinement pod, and in order to clean the permanent pod to allow this to happen, diversion fence panels do most of the work. Most of the panels are automatic, but where the holding pod is located in the building, 3 of the panels have to be positioned and locked down manually, and this can take some strength and intelligence, and well, Ricky didn't possess those, or if he did, he hid them very well. The process got started late, and we were rushing to get this process done before our mandatory break kicked in. Ricky signalled the manual locks were in position and aligned. Pod 3's door slid open, and the specimen rushed forward. The diversion panels were accomplishing what they were designed to do. As the specimen rounded the corner created by the diversion panels, it passed panel 22, which is a manual panel, and it banged on it too, as if it was testing it. Then after another 90 feet or so, it got to panel 29. This was one of the other manual panels, and when the specimen crashed into the panel fell over flat onto the floor with a resounding crash. The specimen stopped and looked at the panel's position, tilted its head to the left, and then charged out of the channel that is created by the panels. One of the guard/handlers down at the far end of the building observed what happened, and he bolted for one of the safety niches that line a containment concourse. He ducked in and slid and latched the steel door. And about this time, Ricky had just recognized the urgency of the issue at hand and began to run to the closest safety niche. But, because of his unkemptness, he tripped over his untied shoelace. He fell and was unable to get up in time, and the specimen jumped on Ricky and severed his right arm at mid-bicep with its very powerful jaws. Now these jaws have the strongest bite force measurement known at 2,272 pounds per square inch or PSI. The hippopotamus has a bite force of 1,825 PSI. At this point, the guard/handler in the gallery above the concourse began firing the high-pressure water cannons, which had been proven to be a dissuader to the specimens in the past. However, this time, the specimen became infuriated, roaring and howling like I have never heard the subjects do before. While keeping Ricky in its clutches, it started dragging him down and around the south section of the concourse. The diversion panels were erected and will always cut the concourse into 2 sections of varying sizes. I was located in the north half and was physically isolated from the specimen and Ricky. I had started to unclamp a panel so I could get to the south section, but was stopped by my supervisor. He stated it would give the specimen access to the whole of the concourse. Ricky's screams echoed into the concourse and was joined by the howls and growls of the other specimens. As the specimen's fury reached a pitch, the specimen wrapped its mouth around Ricky's head and bit down, sinking its 5-inch canines into Ricky's skull, and with a swift twist of the specimen's jaws, Ricky's head was removed from his torso. But in this process, the teeth of the specimen became lodged in the skull cap, and it could not remove them to get Ricky's severed head out of its mouth. The specimen started slamming its head back and forth onto the walls and floor, trying to free the head from its mouth, and this allowed the snipers to get in position to get the tranquilizing shot. As the snipers were moving to their positions, the specimen was making movements that would make a shot almost impossible, since there is one spot which the hide is thin enough to puncture. Jill Strom, a maintenance worker, opened an access door by mistake at this point. I yelled at him to close the door, but it was too late and the specimen had grabbed the door and kept Jill from closing it. At some point in this process, Ricky's head had come loose from its teeth of the specimen and was rolling back out of the hallway into the concourse of the containment area. Jill ran down the hallway, and while I didn't see it from his screams, he was brutally dismembered in the hallway, while the specimen was still moving towards the outside door. I could hear the specimen beating on the reinforced steel door, and then the klaxon alarm was starting to sound over the loudspeakers. There came the shift-duty officer's voice calling for condition black, which meant exterior breach or breach imminent, and that deadly force is authorized. The specimen continued to pound on the steel door, while the guard/handler staff and quick reaction force or QRF was maneuvering to get into a good position to fire on the specimen. It was at this point that I heard the exterior door give way and the guards along with the QRF began running down the hallway, firing their weapons. I ran back up to the security center and on the 40 or so monitors, the battle with the specimen ensued. The long and the short of it is, 2 guards killed in action, 3 wounded, 2 critical, and 5 of the 17 QRF were also killed in action. I continued to work for the DAI's containment section for about a year, after which I resigned from my position. After this incident, and at least 2 others that I know about, I could not in good conscience continue with my employment. I have had nausea, sweats, anxiety, and nightmares. I have no interest in my daily life and flashbacks of the incidents with the specimens. I feel that these specimens have all the characteristics of natural laws gone awry. Statement, excerpt, ends. Something that people should realize, that in order to fight monsters, you have to employ monsters. Harley was awakened by the duty officer at 0500 hours and was instructed to shower and shave, and he reluctantly did so, even though he wanted to punch the guy, and he was worried about his farm. But he had confidence in his field hands to do everything that they needed to do to get done on the farm. You see, Harley believes in making sure that people have some kind of skin or vested interest in their own destiny. Harley shares 15% of his profits with his field hands, plus their normal pay. And if you have a skin in the game, you'll protect it, like you protect your own hide. Harley was showering when he was joined by Jameson, Tracy, Big Mike and Floyd. "All right, my bitch is soaked and ready to ride," boasted Big Mike as he clapped. Yeah, but you haven't paid your bill from the last time." Harley slapped his left bare wet butt cheek and said, "So you cut off the old goat humper," while he grabbed his towel and walked out of the shower area. "Woo, cold-hearted bitch," Jameson said to Big Mike and laughed. The boys finished up with their morning regimes and were waiting on the guards to bring their clean jumpsuits to them. After waiting for an hour in the bath towels, the gate latch clicked and in walked 11 guards. Big Mike said, "I think someone's about to tell us to relax, and this won't hurt a bit." Turning to Jameson. Jameson grumbled. The guard that seemed to be in charge stepped up and said, "Okay, I think you know what's about to happen. In order for us to process you, we will have to perform a comprehensive search, and this is nothing personal, just a routine procedure." The guard started calling off names, and 2 guards went with each of the boys to a separate room, where strip and cavity searches were performed on the men. Over the next 30 minutes, a complete strip and exhaustive search of all cavities was conducted. As the boys filed back into the holding room, they were now dressed in white jumpsuits with blue stripes down the right-hand side, and, what was a little disturbing, as if it couldn't get any more humiliating, the jumpsuits had their name and file number printed on them. And they were allowed to keep their original flip-flops. "What the fuck is up with this shit?" growled Jameson. "I don't know," responded Harley. "Well, next time I get filled up like that, I better get a slap on the ass and a kiss," joked Floyd, shaking his right leg with a disgusted look on his face. "At least it was better than my date at divorce court last year. The court made me wear a ball gag," roared Tracy. Come on, Big Mikey, come on. Give me that little smile, you know? The one you always have after we have rubber glove love In the barracks, Floyd teased with excruciating precision.
I hate this shit, man. Makes me feel all funny, you know? Down there,
Big Mike whined.
I don't know what's worse, getting part of our manhood ripped away or seeing Big Mike cry.
And don't lie, those were real tears, man, said Harley while looking at Big Mike. The guard in charge walked in and said, Jones Henry Mitchell? And Harley turned to him and acknowledged he was there. Come with me, please. The rest of you have a seat, and we'll be with you shortly.
Well, where am I going?
Snarled Harley. Mr. Jones, please, follow me, the guard stated. Yeah, go on, Henry, Big Mike chuckled. Harley looked back with absolute irritation. Harley was walked outside, and this time without restraints, and following the guard across the base area to the talc. The guard checked in at the clearance desk, and Harley was given a guest ID, and Harley put the lanyard around his neck and followed the guard through the tent corridor into the tent annex, and then was told to sit in a chair next to the desk where the staff sergeant was working. You're Jones, Henry Mitchell. Date of birth, social security, are these correct? The staff sergeant asked as he showed them to Harley. Yes, Sergeant, Harley replied. Your last Veterans Administration evaluation happened on this day? The sergeant asked. Are these your current tax returns? The sergeant continued. What is this? Harley said. Please, answer the questions, Mr. Jones, the sergeant said with some frustration. Yes, it's all correct, Harley snapped. The sergeant got up and grabbed some papers and a large file folder and walked over to the door and placed in a temporary wall, knocked and opened it. About 10 minutes later, the sergeant walked out and told Harley to have a seat in the chair along the wall and feel free to grab some coffee and a donut. It might be a while. An hour went by and Harley asked, Where's the pisser? The sergeant called in the guard, and the guard escorted Harley to the latrine and then brought Harley back to the chair. Harley was thinking of getting another cup of coffee when the door opened and a man walked in that was, well, looked a lot younger than what he should have been, considering he was a one-star brigadier general. Sergeant Jones, I'm General Tate. Come on in, turning to the sergeant at the desk. We're not to be disturbed. Yes, sir, replied the sergeant. Sergeant Jones, have a seat, General said. Sir, I'm a civilian now. It's Mr. Jones, Harley said with pride. I have always thought men who have acquired rank over the number of years you have served always held it close to their hearts, said the general. Okay. Well, if you don't mind me asking, how the fuck does someone as young as you become a general? That's a fair question and a direct one. At least you're living up to the performance reviews in your service jacket. You see, Sergeant Jones, sometimes the president sees the need for a specific skill set for a position, and he needs someone that could make, how shall I say this, make the cause that others find horrific and who can be devoid of all conscience, caring and compassion. So you're just a bastard with a star, Harley said smugly. Ha 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 ha, that's a good way to put it, Sergeant, said the general. Really? How old are you? Harley inquired. I'm 37, Sergeant Jones, the general replied. Harley shook his head. What is it that you want from me? Harley asked. Well, Sergeant, it's not just what I want from you, it's the team you took up to the peak to make contact with the authorities. Gutsy move, and from the copy of the debriefing I read, it was all your concept, plan and idea, said the general. Yeah, I had a little something to do with it. Harley looked confused. Oh, Sergeant, don't be modest. For a man such as yourself, that's unbecoming, said the general with a slight irritation in his voice. Harley sat back in the chair and pointed both open hands at the general and said, Look, I have been rebuilding my life ever since I got separated from the military. It hasn't been all that easy. What I did, because I have an intense desire not to wind up becoming a steaming pile of shit after riding a log ride in some monster's colon. Well put, the general acknowledged. And so please, get to the point so I can tell you to fuck off, Harley said with a disdain in his voice. Well, let's discuss your options, said the general.
Options? Harley said while chuckling. You have the option of coming back to work for me, as well as your team, the General said with notable irritation. Stop. I don't have a team. We did what we did to survive and keep our families safe, Harley said sternly. And it was a noble thing you did. That's why I'm offering you and your friends this option. Wow, 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 and another one. Wow. Thank you ever so much, Ed, for that wonderful, riveting story. Absolutely nail-biting, suspenseful. So many scenarios and situations popping up there, and all wonderfully put together by yourself. Guys and girls, you know the drill. As ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help with the channel and our community further. And why not, of course, #Team Fear. If you haven't subscribed to DMT Forest of Fear, where have you been? What are you waiting for? Smash that subscribe button, and why not tickle the notification bell to stay up to date with all Dead Man Talking content and posts. And of course, as ever, if you have a story you'd like to share with us here on the show, please do get it over to myself, either by email or at the website, which of course is dmtforestofear@gmail.com. As ever, guys and girls, I hope you're all holding up well and keeping safe during this chaos that's erupting around the globe. And above all, guys, remember, be safe, not sorry.